In 1781, just 5 years after America had declared independence from Great Britain, the laws of the Articles of Confederation had been ratified and approved to help establish government within the country. Once these laws were put into action, the delegates of the country could quickly see that they were just not working. So 6 years later, in 1787, the delegates from each state met in Philadelphia to discuss further action and find a solution. This became known as the Constitutional Convention. What was being discussed was whether they wanted to get rid of the articles with difficult amendments or essentially just create a whole new government. While they did in fact decide to create something new, in September of 1787, a proposal of the Constitution was given to each delegate, and they were asked to submit this to their state legislature to be ratified. Now, it's important to note that the advocates of the Constitution were referred to as Federalists, and the opponents were called Anti-Federalists. Well, these Anti-Federalists quickly became annoyed with the idea of a strong government and were very much against the Constitution that had been proposed. They believed it was going to be a major loss of rights for the states, and they were scared that it was going to create a monarchy in America like it was in Great Britain, which is what they fought so hard to break away from just 11 years prior. This opposition led to what was known as the Great Debate. This was a debate that took 10 months and was held in New York, where it seemed like ratification was impossible because of how divided the citizens were on the subject of the Constitution. So, one thing that was presented at the debate was something called the Federalist Essays. This was published under the pseudonym Publius, and these articles were in all the newspapers all through New York City from October of 1787 to April of 1788. This article consisted of 85 essays arguing the benefits of a strong central government and how it was essential to keep the Union alive. The men who wrote these articles felt it was extremely necessary to explain these benefits of the Constitution to the states so the citizens were informed and could make an informed decision on ratifying the Constitution. These essays were written by Alexander Hamilton, who was an aide to General George Washington and later became the Secretary of Treasury, John Jay, who would go on to become the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and Governor of New York, and then lastly, James Madison, who was a lawyer and would go on to become the 4th President of the United States. And one essential point of these articles was that individuals have a natural right to liberty, dignity, and happiness, and that to ensure that the rights remained, the government must secure the public good and private rights against the dangers of a majority, while at the same time preserving the spirit and form of a popular government. And this was part of the argument that essentially won over the votes on ratifying the Constitution. And that is how we got our Constitution that we have today. And many people hear these articles, they hear about the Federalist Essays and say, why do we need to know about these and how does it pertain to our society? Well, these articles influence our democracy that we use to this day. And they allow us to have an insight and an understanding of the men who outlined the dreams that they had envisioned for this country. And this gives us the ability to try and maintain the same values and pride in our country that these men had.